Hi, thanks for coming to my online presentation for Communication 101 class. So today I will present chapter 12.2, which is about speaking in academic settings. So now let's take a look at the title first. If you are thinking, because we have the word academic here, so this chapter will be somehow related to studying, school, not things like that, then you are correct. So for now, let's get into the content of this chapter. So what is it? As you thought, speaking in academic setting is mainly speaking in school, where you study bunches of different subjects as a way to prepare for your career. So that means speaking in this environment is simply a simulation of what you will face in your career. When you are working, most of the time you will have to collaborate with the others to complete the given work. So you have to communicate with your coworker for sure. And the thing is, this conversation will highly focus on what related to your job based on the specialty of what you are doing. Like if you are on computer engineering, you will discuss the way to design a PCB board or how to connect the electrical wire, stuff like that. And due to this specialty, when you want to the order to clearly understand what you are talking about, you will need a specific way to do so. So that means your coworker or supervisor will expect something from your presentation, and this will vary from one job to the another. Normally, each job will need different communication style, and the purpose of presentation in school is to simulate these scenarios. In other words, presenting in biology class will be a simulation of biology related career. And besides, if at workplace your supervisor will evaluate your work, then the instructors will be the one grading what you have done at school. Remember, that doesn't mean you only present your work to your instructor, because your classmate will also be the audience member. So in short, you can say that the professor are our primary audience and our classmates audience too. Our classmate will be our audience member like the coworker at workplace. So let's summarize. That is speaking to the professor and classmate. And these are the summary of the idea. And basically, we can divide the simulation into 5 different fields, which are social science, art and humanities, education, training and development, science and math, and technical course. However, we also have one more category here, which is speaking at academic conference. This is not really a field, but it also requires specific way to present something, so it become a line here. So our first field will be social science. Typically, this field includes some subjects such as psychology, sociology, criminology, and political science. And as it name, the subject in this field learn about different aspects of society or even individual. The study in this field is driven mainly by two types of research, the qualitative and the quantitative. The qualitative is about describing or interpreting uh, the survey. So qualitative is about describing and interpreting a survey or interviewing, or you can say that is talking to different people. And researchers of this time normally observe and describe different state of individual. They somehow like capture the specific moment of that person and analyze them and use that data to describe and then conclude the result of a phenomenon in our society. To this type of research, normally the reader has to think and maybe trying to get the feeling of the participant in order to understand the analysis. However, for the quantitative research, they mainly focus on explaining the phenomenon in our society by using statistics from the survey or the environment. So from the survey or from experiment. So in this field, the presenter have to connect their historical or current social event to their presentation. I think this is understandable since that is what they are studying for after all. They are studying this subject because they want to analyze the phenomena in our society. So they have to connect it, that is for sure. And besides, they have to review many different sources before synthesizing them all together and analyze, because this study can be biased in some way due to the different in types of research. Like qualitative researcher, it is based on their interviewing with participants, so there is highly a chance that another researcher will have different analysis, although that's to the same person, but it can be depend on the thought of those researcher, so it can be a bit off here since there generally no rules for the qualitative data. That means students have to review many different sources to have an overview on the subject, and during this process they have to identify, comparing and contrasting different perspectives in a research to avoid the subjectivity in that. And the second field I am going to talk about is art and humanities. This area is mainly about assessing, comparing and commenting on historical, literary or literature, on art, philosophies or historical context by using the perspective of that era. And in this area, students we often have to prepare work from start to finish, and when presenting them, they must describe the process as well as what led them to this work. In other words, it's kind of the inspiration. And because the artists they value the process, so they pay attention to it. And as for the reviewer or the researcher, although their assessment may be subjective, but they themselves must find out a way to protect their views. So like, even though they criticize the art or the philosophy, maybe another criticizer has some comment about their opinion too. So then it's like they criticize each other. So they must have a way to protect their views. And in other words, they they must have a rational observation. Because of this, it requires them to have the synthesis and critical thinking ability. And the next part is about education, training and development. So in short, being a teacher is an example, a typical example of this field. As a teacher, he is obvious that they must be skilled in delivering a lecture, starting a discussion, or running of activities to help the student engage in their lecture. In this field, immediacy behavior is very important because it is the signal for teacher approachability. These behavior are simple gesture like nodding to show like the teacher are listening to the student or smiling to encourage the student or just some small thing like changing the vocal pitch depending on the class situation. Besides, as a teacher, they must know how to relate the knowledge to the existing knowledge, what they already taught the student, so that they can expand the new knowledge based on the old foundation and even have some bigger picture of the issue. For example, when learning about types of greenhouse gas and their effect, teachers can relate to global warming as an example of the harmful effect of this gas, and also expanding this issue is also a way to help the student dig deeper into the content as is as explaining a math formula. Basically, a student can just apply some rules and being able to produce a result just after a few lines, but a teacher can still spend like 20 minutes or half an hour just to explain this line. And as said, teachers must know how to adjust the harmony of the classroom to achieve the best performance. But interacting or listening to students is one of the most typical ways to do this. So that's why teachers or the one in this field have to interact and listening to the audience, not like the others. The next part is about science and math. So for science area, there are biology, physics, and chemistry. And for the math, it includes statistics, calculus, and math theory, and much more. One thing for sure is that the researcher in this group always use the result from the available research and use it to extend what they are going to find out and even develop their own result too. And because of the nature of this field, at least from the public perspective, they do not focus on communication between the researcher because it's like all of the research is mostly personal. But for now, there is a trend that their communication ability is growing because they have to communicate with the funder, the investor, or the public to make their research become more available. So for scientists or for math guys, they must have the skill to classify important information because when they're presenting something, they must find a way to highlight the information and make it simplest, maybe to be able to attract the public as well, the one who is not in the field. So the example of this one is like the poster of the global warming issue. That is the typical example. The next one is the technical course. So this include some subjects such as computer science, engineering, and fire science. Although this field is still need of research, but the thing is they value more about the testing and the replication of the process and even the design. So like a science field, this this field is driven by the data. So the exchange between the researcher will become less subjective. And in this field, you need to be able to communicate with the one who is not in the field to find a partner or the client. It can be said that you will always have to find a customer because you are an inventor yourself, so you have to sell your product to another person. You have to find the one that will use your design. So therefore, you need to be able to minimize or simplify all the information as much as possible to communicate with the one who is not in the field so that you can attract them and persuade them using your product. And finally, it's about speaking at the academic conference. So since the academic conferences are local, regional, national, or international events where students, teachers, and professionals participate to discuss and share knowledge in a particular field of study. And since this is the place for you to speak research from all industry, it's like a competition, so you must be able to summarize all of the project, which is like 30 pages long into the 10-minute speech or so. So in general, the ability to summarize should be prioritized in this one. And about the presentation, there are three parts: the intro, the interrogation or the main question, the conclusion. For the first step is about attract the audience, and the second step is answering on the main question. That is, you are going to research. And the last one is that you need to conclude everything into one concept, that is synthesize all of your project so that the audience can remember everything that you had said, because that is your final purpose for this conference. So thanks for watching.